Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 475. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot, Segulin, the Duke of You-Know, and the elder statesman of the podcast.
How's it going, eh?
On this episode, Jim and I are going to be talking Superwoman number 1, Flash number 5, Nightwing number 3, and All-Star Batman number 1. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network, the League of Comic Book Podcasts, and the InfiniteComics.com podcast partnership. Mr. Segulin, sponsoring this episode is DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. What is going on over at DCBService.com?
What's always going on over there? Bundles. That's right. Of course, they're continuing these really cool deals throughout the Rebirth universe. There's 4 different bundles for the Rebirth universe. They've got a special bundle for the miniseries. They've got a special bundle for the variants. A special bundle for the Vertigo bundle for these really cool young animal bundles. Stories that are coming out that way. Most of the bundles 50% off. The variants are 45% off, but still 50% off of these bundles. These are just, again, these great deals that I'm loving. That's keeping me reading comics. But also, there's something else I got to talk about, and that's Thundercats. Ho! He-Man and Thundercats. I saw that. I jumped on. I was like, oh my God, this is outstanding. And then I actually saw that the artwork's being done by Freddie Williams II, longtime friend of the show, fabulous artist. He's doing it. It's a really cool 6-issue limited series coming out right now. You can get that one separate, 40% off, only $239. Come on, check it out. You got to love this. Thank you, DCBS.
Yeah, that part has me really excited that Freddie's going to be on that. I know those are dream properties for him, so it's really cool to be able to enjoy that work. So please pre-order that. Freddie's been a longtime supporter of this podcast, so please support him and his projects. Jim, over at InStockTrades.com, I love the deals of the week, right? We have the Harley Quinn hardcover, Volume 5. 50% off, only $12.49. Titans Hunt. If you're liking the new Titans series, you really got to read Titans Hunt because it's the prelude to this right now. 50% off, only $9.99. Wonder Woman hardcover, Volume 9, Resurrection. 50% off, only $12.49. Omega Men, The End Is Here trade paperback. Omega Men's getting some real readership right now as far as in these trade paperback collections. I'm so glad that series is gone, but I'm glad to see that it seems to be getting a life in trade paperback collected form. That's 45% off, only $13.74, and I think it's because Tom King's popularity is increasing, so people are going back and checking out some of his work. I can't recommend Omega Men enough. What a great book. Definitely check out Omega Men if you missed it the first time around. So I want to thank DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show, and remember that DCBService.com is a digital partner. Link your MyDigitalComics.com or your Comixology accounts to your DCB Service account. Go to their website, shop through the portal. Doesn't cost you anything more, but you start earning 5% of those purchases towards your DCB Service order. Mr. Segulin, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on today's show. So, if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk some comics. Jim, it's funny. I moved over this past week, and that's why there was a delay between this episode and the past one. I was trying to get situated because we sold my father's home, and I inherited my father's house when he passed away, and I sold his home, and then we're in the process of selling the home we were living in, and we moved to a new home. So trying to get this house set up so we could record was not an easy process because I had to activate services and then get my equipment over here and rehook everything up. I forgot what this was like. So it's been exciting. I'm a week behind in my reading. So last week's books I have not read yet, and that's going to be kind of my project this week is to kick back, relax, get caught up on last week's books, read this week's books, and be current. So I'm about a week behind, but there's a lot of books you and I haven't had a chance to talk about, so it's a great time to catch up. One of them I was particularly interested in was Superwoman, because I think you and I both, we referenced on the show, I think, multiple times what we thought the premise of this book was going to be. We thought it was going to be Lois Lane inherited the powers from Superman. But then you mentioned something, you caught this right away. It wasn't just Lois that got caught in the blast, and that was deliberate. They were right in our face with it. It was Lana Lang, too. I don't know why, because I think when they talked about Superwoman, I guess I always thought it was going to be Lois. Man, did they swerve us. In a good way. I really like this book. I like the premise behind it, because it's not Lois.
Yeah. And especially by the end of the first issue, you really see it's not Lois.
It's interesting on that end. So this book is, because they're on the Smallville farm in Kansas when they start off, and you see the two of them. They've kind of gone back to the roots, like Clark Kent passed away. And they both had a relationship with, the New 52 Clark Kent. The New 52 Superman passed away. Or so we think. That's still to be determined exactly what's going on there, right? But they're kind of reminiscing their Superman going away and trying to figure out these powers. And I like the idea of Superman's death being inspirational. It's not just inspirational to these two. We actually, we'll talk about Supergirl's book, but it plays out there as well. This guy had an impact. I mean, he was our Superman for quite a while there. So I like seeing that there are people who are like, yeah, we got a new Superman running around, but he's not our guy. This guy was our guy. And they're inspired by that. I love the farm scenes. Anytime they go to Smallville, kind of go to that historical piece of Superman, there's something, it's nostalgic, it's like Gotham, it's its own place. Smallville's different than Gotham, though, in the sense that you want to hang out in Smallville. Like, I want a picnic in Smallville, right? I want to run around the barn, I want to run on the Kent farm, I want to see where he was jumping from rooftop to rooftop, all that kind of crazy stuff that you see from time to time in the movies when they do it really well. You want to go to those locations. I think the TV series Smallville kind of made that more for me, just because of the fact there was so much of that took place on the farm, and those sequences with John Schneider and Clark and his mother and Lana. It really kind of brought home for me this sense of what life was like on the farm. I thought it was something the TV show fleshed out in a way that was pretty unique. And this just becomes an iconic location because of it, and a lot of fun. That was a great opening to this book, just seeing them there and fleshing out Lana Lang, who we've had some decent amount of screen time with, but haven't really had her such a focal point as we're starting to get with this issue.
Yeah, it was it was funny because going through with jumping back and forth, then and now, and I liked how they played it out. And initially you're just introduced that Lois is the only one, the Superwoman. Lois is doing all the stuff. They're showing images of Lois helping the kids and Lois saving the day. But as the backstory, they finally give us that full amount of the info that Lana's got powers as well, and Lana can charge up, and Lana's a little bit different. But it was kind of neat seeing Lois take that lead, because her costume's very similar to what Superman had. She was kind of being that iconic image. And again, it was the one scene cracked me up, because it's one of my favorite lines from Superman is when Lois catches the jet, she's like, "I've got you, you've got us, who's got you?" And they did that little smirk on Lois's face. I was like, man, that's kind of a cool panel. I chuckled at it. It was a nice little nod to the original Christopher Reeves movie, and I was happy with that. So this is a bit of book that, as I'm reading this, going, man, this is a cool book. This is gonna be kind of neat seeing these two work together, and how's that gonna play out? And it was one of those things where the ending was a beautiful swerve at the end. Because I was thinking the whole time we're going to get two Superwomen fighting. We're going to get these two learning how to deal with each other. You'll have maybe some personal conflict going on. But in the end, they're both want to do Clark proud. They both want to, wear the shield proudly and all that. And no little surprise for you.
Yeah, and that was the part that I really liked about it. I like a surprise like this. This is Phil Jimenez doing the words and pencils. And Matt Santorelli on inks, Jeremy Cox on colors, Rob Lay on letters, the cover by Phil Jimenez and Steve Downer, variant cover by Terry and Rachel Dodson, associate editor Phil Kaminsky, editor Eddie Berganza. And it's really one of those things where I loved her costume, Lois's costume. They got me on this one because I was really digging this idea, and I thought it was going to be buddy cop. I really thought that's where this was going, because in the beginning it looked like Lois was the focal point. Like you said, it shifted over. And then I'm like, oh, cool, they're kind of going with a buddy cop premise with these two. And I've always liked Lois and Lana's interplay anyway, so I'm glad they're bringing this into the universe, because I think it's something classic. And And the swerve was so great because I'm like, wait, you mean Lana's the star? What? And I like that. That was really a cool swerve. And I'm very excited to read Lana as the lead in this book. And I thought it was a brilliant touch because I really like both characters. They're both iconic. We've got a Lois in the universe now. You know, we've got the old Lois back. So this is a great way to bring a Lana into this universe, have Lana take a more active role in the universe, and really to flesh out that character in a way that I find interesting. This was a good move.
Yeah. Now, it was funny because when I first read this and I saw them kill off Lois, I was like, oh, okay, she'll come back. I wasn't even thinking. Then it was that second and third read through. I'm like, wait a minute. We have the other Lois. Oh, my God, this is how they're getting rid of her. And I was like, oh, and that you really go back through and you really reread this because the neat thing was the issue was being told from Lana's perspective.
Right.
And that was the thing that when I was reading it, it didn't really, you saw it and I knew it was, Lana, doing the talking, but it never really clicked as to why she was doing the talking, why she was doing the inner voice, etc. And I was like, man, okay, that's kind of cool. And I like the fact that Lana doesn't have the traditional Superman power. She doesn't have the super strength and speed. That went to Lois. She doesn't have the heat vision. She's got the energy stylings and all that. So I'm kind of curious to see what's going to happen with Lana as she goes on this, this little journey. Is her power is going to change a little bit more? Is she going to get more of the strength? Because you think back to when Connor first hit the scene, he had, a certain level. He had a certain power set. He didn't have the full Superman power set. But as time went on, the power started growing in him and developing, and he got more of the traditional Superman roles in him. So I'm curious to see if Lana gets that, or how is she going to play this off, etc. This is one of those things where the story was really kind of neat. I was reading it, having fun, and then that swerve at the end, and then you realize, holy crud, and it went back through and you reread it again. This had some really cool rereadability and had some great setup for the future issues. There's a lot they can go with this route.
Yeah, and I like the whole. This is, again, she got the powers from the Superman that could go super explosive. There was a different power set there with him, and that, I like how that's playing into this. We've also got this mysterious person watching Superman in one of the other books. Does this character play into this? I love Lex, seeing the Super Lex on the big carrier and how that all played out. To your right, the inner dialogue is we're seeing how Lana views Lex. And I didn't pick up on that either being the focal point until the end, because I figured, they're just trading off these two because it's buddy cop. I didn't think that they were doing it because, I figured Lana was going to maybe be the narrator this issue, Lois the next. That's obviously not going to happen, but I think you're right. There's always a possibility they're bringing her back, and that was the intention. I'm with you. I don't think that's the case, but it is still on the table. It's comics, right? There may be a storytelling reason why they want to do it. But regardless, I just think that's really, really cool how this is happening. I like that this book bleeds over into other books. I like that we've seen Superwoman elsewhere. The continuity going on right now, I think, in this whole Rebirth universe that they're crafting is really nice. I mean, she was only there in a cameo in what I've seen of her, but I like the cameo. I like the idea that this is a larger world and these characters interact and, they're speeding around from place to place, saving people from disasters. And you may not see them on screen because they're flying off to do something else, but they're there. And it adds kind of a reality. It's something we like in the movies, right? When you see a character in the background that you didn't expect. Suicide Squad, great example of that, seeing the Flash, right? Mm-hmm. That stuff was cool. I like to see that here as well. Really well done.
And I liked how Lex is written in this. Again, This is one of those things where, throughout all the different issues, Lex is being written very consistent, whether it's in Superman titles, action, Superwoman titles, any of his appearances has been very Lex. And I liked how he has this super whatnot that he's got, this super tanker, ship he's got. And of course, being Lex, he's got to have some hidden stuff. He's got to have some experimentation that he's doing on metahumans and whatnot. And it's, I was kind of like, damn, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm with you. That part is really neat. It's great to see how this is all playing out. I liked the bit where Lana was kind of content to stay behind the scenes. Just because you have powers doesn't mean that you want to be in the forefront or anything like that. And I like that Lana was, happy to be like, it's kind of like the Oracle Black Canary relationship, how it initially kicked off, where Oracle was behind the scenes guiding, being kind of the brains, and, Black Canary was being the brawn. And that's oversimplifying because Black Canary obviously has her own, strategy and intelligence and skill set. But intelligence is probably the better word. Oracle is acting as intelligence. Lana Lang, the same thing, kind of surveying and analyzing the situation from the outside and providing intel. And I liked that. I liked that relationship of the whole thing. I love the bit where Lois is like, no, I need you. I don't need you on the mic. I need you. And that was our first introduction of what Lana could do. And I really liked the way that played out. It goes back to the Red and Blue Superman to a certain extent. Where the did you read any of that stuff?
Vaguely.
Okay. I like, that's when Superman was kind of an energy being of two different kinds of energy, and it led to all kinds of different questions. I liked that storytelling. I didn't want that going on permanently, but there is a premise to there being an energy component to the powers. I want to know more of what's going on here with Lana, why her powers are so distinctly different, and it's something that I want to see fleshed out over time in the story. Obviously, it has to do with the nature of how she got the powers, but I want to know what it means for her. And here's the curious part with her. Does kryptonite affect her? Considering that her powers, first of all, she's not Kryptonian, and her powers came and are of a different nature. What does that mean for her? I'm very curious to see that play out in the comics, to see what exactly strengths and weaknesses she has as this goes on.
Yeah, see, I wasn't thinking kryptonite would affect her just because she's not Kryptonian.
Agreed.
Her weaknesses are basically going to be based on the fact that she's not exactly Superman. She is an energy being. She can manipulate solar energy into, and as you said, like into electricity and various usage and whatnot of that. And that actually works for her being the engineer she is. Her being who she is, the power set really fits her. She's not, the brooding tank. She is the intelligence. She has the strategery to pull this off. I'm going to be curious to see her do some manipulation, especially you think about with her and Steel, and their relationship. So seeing how that kind of plays into effect, But one of the things that I thought was, it was a really cool scene when Lois dies. And I'm putting air quotes because, granted they said who killed Superwoman and it looks like she's dead, but this is comic book, so you don't know. I love that moment where Lois has that realization of what Clark went through when he ended. And he was like, Clark, oh God, I understand now. It all makes sense. Boom. And she goes. And it's that, part of me wonders, is that just more transference of her energy onto Lois's and moving on her energy? Does she know something that we don't know about this version of this version of Clark? It was kind of a neat way for her to go. Again, I think she is dead because I think they're cleaning house and only going to, I think they're doing the Highlander, so there's only going to be one, Lois, and I'm cool with that. Granted, this was a neat concept, but this was a cool hero death, the way she went down. Sure. Granted, it's, you always want to see just a point to it. And here, this is really taking the story to a whole nother level. And even Lana's like, we never had all that much in common. Well, except for one thing. We're both Superwoman, and I don't know how I'm going to do this without her. I love the fact that right there, they're adding to the story with her death. It's not just a death to death. It is something that's going to, affect Lana. That's going to make this title go forward. It's going to develop this character, and we're going to see what happened to her? Where did the energy go? Who is this? I'm calling her Bizarro, female Bizarro, because she's kind of got the look. And I'm assuming she was created because Lex was trying to manipulate Kryptonite DNA, Kryptonian DNA, or do whatever he's doing his Superman experimentation. So that's been a lot of times the way Bizarro has been created. So I'm assuming this is a Bizarro Superwoman.
Yeah, maybe. One of the things that I want to go back on, I love that we see in Lana's powers, she does have Superman-like powers in the sense of the super strength. Because when she and Lois do that whole CrossFit sequence, it's not just Lois using the strength there, it's Lana too. And Lois is well aware of the fact that working together, both of their strength can make it possible for this to happen. Because if Lana didn't have similar power sets, she would have been crushed by what was going on there. That was interesting to see how that went. I also liked that when they were talking about being partners, Lana brings up the point that we don't even like each other. You know, it's like, you did horrible things to Clark. I didn't forget any of that. You know, it's I like that natural relationship between the two. Because, you know, sometimes people become partners too easily in these type of things. It's far more interesting when you deal with the reality of not everybody's going to like each other that winds up in circumstances. There's a real-world aspect to seeing their relationship grow. I was actually looking forward to seeing that exploration, which is so brilliant about this whole thing and how it went down. So the over-under on this, because you're right, we do see that Bizarro creature come in, grab Lois during the fight. You know, it's just the last couple of pages. You know, Lois is talking about her headline, I'm not going anywhere, Red, I promise. And literally, I'm not going anywhere, Red, I promise, leads to her dying. That, to me, just the nature of the line, if they're swerving me yet again, they're doing a really good job, because I think this is it for Lois.
Yeah, I think Lois is gone as well. I think this is the end of her, and that was just because that was Lois on the farm saying, "Hey, don't worry, I got your back. We'll be a partner. We'll be a team here." You know, and it was that whole "don't worry." You know, it's kind of like when you see those old war movies where the guy's talking about how when I get out of here, I'm gonna go down and get a sandwich at Joe's, and talking about what all the stuff he's gonna do when he gets back to the world, and then he dies. You know, I think that's for me is how I read that as this is her saying, "Don't worry, guys, let's do this." And oh, she's dead. You know, so I'm thinking we've seen the end of Lois Lane. But again, as I say that, there is always going to be that little bit of doubt, just because comic book universe, just the nature of the power set. You know, I'm still debating whether we've completely seen the last of the New 52 Superman, and he's been dead and buried and gone. I'm like, maybe he'll come back. So we will see her again in a different form.
I agree. So as a series kickoff, because this is the kind of the premise, you kind of take a look at this is, does this feel series worthy to you? Mini-series worthy to you? Because I think this has a lot of legs to it. I'm very excited by this, particularly with, I was excited for Lois, but I'll be honest, I was thinking Lois as Superwoman was more short-term. This they could really do something with, and it could turn into something really neat. I don't know why, with Lana, I'm seeing more of a long-term possibility with this than I was with Lois, and I think it maybe is the different power set, maybe that it's Lana, and I was expecting it to be Lois. I think there's something interesting going on here. Do you think this is something that has potentially legs to it?
See, you and I are seeing this the exact same way. When I was first reading this, seeing them two together, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, it'd be kind of neat. Well, seeing Lois as Superwoman, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that'd be kind of neat. It's kind of a neat story, but I was not thinking a long-term story. I was thinking, just a short-term series and whatnot. I wasn't thinking, and part of me was she was kind of being, I was enjoying what she was doing. I was enjoying the look, but in my back of my head, it was kind of like we have a Supergirl. We have somebody with this power set. We have somebody like this. Why are we telling another version of the same story? And it was like, I was happy to see it because I was like kind of neat. And then when they pulled into the buddy cop thing, I was like, oh, okay, this could be kind of cool seeing these two together. But when they killed off Lois and when that final page, I was like, oh, I'm in. I'm all in on this one now. And part of it is because they're not afraid to kill somebody off. Part of it is because of all this possibility of what Lana is going to be able to do, where she's going to go, all these questions that started flying through my head when that one page, when she's fried, I was like, holy crud, this could be something. And then especially I went back and I reread it again. And that was the second read through, knowing the swerve at the end really changed that read through, because you're like sitting there going, oh, okay, hey, wow. It was that whole story. As I said, it didn't click in my head that it was Lana doing all the inner dialogue and all that stuff. And I was just like, wow, that's a cool story. I want to read the next issue. I want to see where this goes. I want to see her interactions with, various Justice League, the Superman of this world. I want to see her and Steel, see how this is affecting them, because they had a solid, thing going until this, until all the craziness started happening. I'd like to see how that relationship's going. I want to see how Her in various, team ups with other superheroes, her solo. I want to see who these mystery people are. I want to see her dealing with Lex. Yeah. Lana dealing with Lex is going to be dramatically different than Lois dealing with Lex. And I want to see, because, I want to see that Kansas farm girl deal with, the man one of the guys she blames for Superman's death. I want to see that.
I agree with you. I think that there's a lot of potential here, and I think it's why I don't want to say I'm more excited for it now, but I think there's more longevity for this, because I think I was excited for Superwoman as a premise anyway, but I wasn't thinking long term. But this, I'm excited for like a lengthy exploration of this, and I hope that they have an opportunity to do this. I think Phil Jimenez is just a great writer and obviously artist as well. I think this is going to be an interesting book to see as it develops, just because it was so totally not what I expected. I give him credit for this. This Rebirth thing has been really cool in, what we always talk about with Rebirth, what they brought back to the table. But I also like the fact that they haven't forgotten that comics, by their nature, are experimental. There's, like, Blue Beetle launching. That's a character they're bringing back who's a newer character and giving that character another shot again. I like that this is a new character. Yeah, it's Lana, but it's Lana in a new role, trying something new, a new concept. It's a great mix of bringing back the classic while trying some new things at the same time. That's really cool. I want that. I want fresh along with my classic, and you got to find that right balance. And I think that's what the universe has been trying to do since they launched the New 52. It was trying to find that sweet spot, and obviously for some people the New 52 didn't give you that sweet spot that had the right amount of classic. I think this is doing it, and this book is a great example of how to bring in the fun as well, because this is fun.
Oh, God, yeah. And I've been raving about the story, but you do have to comment on just how beautiful the artwork is.
Oh, yeah.
This is another one of those. This was an awesome looking as well as story being told. And given that, we've got, it's, I think, for me, part of a lot of the Superman, not of the dun-da-da moments, does come from the story, but it does come from some of the visual stuff. And I really got to say, I love the look of this book as well. So this was, for me, this was a solid hit, especially, as I said, that final page. That final page took it from, this is going to be kind of neat to, oh, my God, I need more. So I'm excited for number 2.
Can we talk about The Flash?
Yeah.
I want to talk about Barry's Day Off. I really want to talk about The Flash number 5, just kind of talk about The Flash in general. A lot of times on the podcast over the years I referenced how Wally West's character was really the one that made me appreciate the Flash concept. It was the Mark Waid run, straight on through Jeff Johns, Grant Morrison, all that kind of stuff that was being done there. It was really great material. Well, they brought back Barry, and when he first came back, Barry was kind of brooding a bit. It was kind of, they hadn't quite found the sweet spot. Talk about sweet spots. They didn't quite find the sweet spot with Barry again. If there's one thing I think the New 52 did really, really well, when they relaunched Barry, he was fun. Like, they brought, like, he's the everyman. He's, like, the hero you can hang out with. You want to be like him because he's such a good guy. But he also enjoys himself in what he's doing as a hero. He tries juggling real life, and you see him do that. He has friendships and relationships, and these people matter to you. You actually start to get to know them because Barry gets to know them both in and out of costume. Some people know his identity. It's an interesting, kind of relationship that's in there. I love this concept that now somebody's messing with the Speed Force, and they're tapping into the Speed Force that Barry accesses, and it's a race to try and recapture the Speed Force, right? There's this killer going around that's taking out people that have become speedsters through this mass event for the purpose of every time he defeats them, he takes their powers from them, right? So yeah, go ahead.
It's the great race, and I love the fact that that's part of the thing going on with the Flash. That it's, you don't have to beat him; you have to be faster than him. You got to, it's not beating him up; it's just beating him in the race. It's who's the fastest, who can get, and it's that whole energy. And again, it fits with the Speed Force when you start thinking about this. And I liked how they introduced the concept that all these, just how many of these people were getting this, got charged up, and not everybody's going to be a good guy. Some people are going to try to use their things for bad, and they showed them in a couple of the earlier issues where they showed a couple speedsters robbing a bank, and Barry and his partner, who He still hasn't come up with a cool name for himself. But, Barry and his partner stop him. And I liked how they showed just, again, this team and then the development of this team and just everything that it's going on with, Star, how they're actually trying to train, but not only train, but help people deal with it. They had some great Barry moments throughout these issues where you get to see why Barry is the Flash, why the Barry Allen Flash is so cool, because he's that great guy. You take the what's her name, Avery, where she was where she couldn't control her speed and she was constantly in the hyper state. And it was Barry who went up to her and showed her, okay, calm down. Start talking, make a fist now. Start opening it up, and start talking about the different things that you love, the people that you care about. That's your connection to this world. That'll bring you back. And sure enough, it slowed her down and it brought her back. And it was that grounding, the concept of being grounded to the earth and being grounded and just, being focused, not lost in the speed. I loved, again, I was just like, man, that's some cool stuff. I was sitting there and as I'm reading, because the first issue of the Flash, like, oh, that is kind of neat. Then when they showed him getting the one partner getting jacked up, like, okay, that can be kind of cool. But once again, then when you really started seeing, when they really started developing this, I was like, oh, this is gonna be some cool story.
Oh, jeez, did you just do Jar Jar Binks?
By accident.
Joshua Williamson's the writer on this one. Felipe Watanabe on the pencils. Andrew Curie and Auclair Albert on inks. Evan Placencia on the colors. Steve Wan's letterer. Carmine Di Giordamenco on the cover. Dave Johnson, variant cover. Diego Lopez, assistant editor. Brian Cunningham and Amadeo Turturro are the editors. And apologies for any name butchery there, because this is a great team. They really understand this character. To your point, I love when you see Barry as the mentor, and Barry talking through some of the ways that he had to deal with getting used to his powers and controlling what it means. It's kind of like when we talk about the willpower with the Green Lantern, right? It's nice to know there's something more to it. It's not just you plop on the ring. It takes an immense part of will. It has to be something that's ingrained inside you, that you're able to generate that. And the Flash has something similar. It is Barry talking about how, not everyone can just take control of the speed. You've got to learn how to control your body. You've got to learn how to get confident in what you can do, and really how to control your vibrations in order to phase through walls, to be able to control the constant speed going on around you. You view the world differently. And I really like that concept. Mina Dahawan, I'm probably butchering her last name, but she talks about she's the fastest woman alive. I like the relationship building with her and Barry. And Barry would find a kindred spirit in her, in that she's smart, she's a scientist, she's got like a similar background. She has, it seems to be like a similar ideology. She's a genuine good person. Barry's off with her in Bali, and you see that like sunrise together, and how he just takes a day off right now and kind of regroups, which isn't something that he normally does as the Flash. These moments are really important, the calm before the storm, because the storm's coming. But but it's important to care about these characters more. It's when you see that dialogue and you see them have those moments that this relationship matters to me. When I see him with Iris, that relationship matters to me. Barry's got a lot of things going on in this book right now, and the supporting cast have a lot of things going on in this book that really makes it interesting to come back in every single month and to turn every single page. I want updates on everybody. I want to know where it's all going, because that way when the action hits, they matter. This really matters to me. This is a great cast lineup. This has been a book that I really feel the New 52 nailed all the way through. So when they did Rebirth, what they needed to do with it, yeah, sure, you can bring some of the elements back that you want to in there, but you also don't want to lose what's worked with this book in the New 52, because I think what they found, this is one of the titles that I think right from the get-go, they found that it really tapped into the core of what's cool about Barry Allen. In this case, now you just need Barry reacting to the fact that he knows. He knows something larger's happening. Wally's back. And it's great to have those moments where he references and clicks with things like that. There's the larger mystery that's looming that's a part of all this, too. And I like that Barry's at the forefront of it, because if there's a crisis or whatever you want to call what's going on right now, if you don't have the Flash in the center of it, something's wrong. and This is really working. I am just as big a fan of Barry Allen now as I am of Wally West. they've really done a great job of getting this character being back where I consider him to be the forefront Flash, and I really, really enjoy him. I think there's a nice merging now of fans of Barry Allen and Wally West who can find a lot to like about both characters.
Yeah, oh God, yeah. And it's funny because you talk about just his relationship, and it was funny because I didn't, again, another swerve didn't see coming. Because I was expecting her to be around long term. Now, granted, we definitely don't know if she's gone completely yet. She could be in the Speed Force. She could have been trapped inside of, Godspeed or whoever, or wherever she is. But once again, it's that whole, man, can't superheroes just have a relationship and have a little bit of company and just, come on, man, why are you doing that to Barry? Because, as it's going through, you hit the nail on the head there where you're saying, it starts off in Bali and everything's great. And he's like, man, I haven't enjoyed a sunset. I race past them all the time, but I never just stopped and enjoyed it. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then you keep going through, and she meets up with Wally, and she's going to help Wally train Wally on the side because he's not ready to actually stay. Hey, I'm a speedster, and he's because of everything that happens with him in the past and the powers and whatnot. So I love the fact that you get this nice little building, and then at the end, knock your knee, just knock the knees right out from under you. Bam! Guess what? She's gone. I'm like, oh, come on, guys. You're killing me, man. You're killing me.
Yeah, this is really fun. I also like that they're starting to flesh out not only his partner, but the new Wally. And I like the new Wally. I like that he's a part of this. I like that they haven't dropped that character by bringing back the original Wally West. I think that part's really interesting. I want him to stick around no matter what the resolution is of this universe-shaking thing.
Yeah. Now, one of the neat things I liked about this with because you mentioned the new Wally. One, I liked how when everything that happened, they explained why there were two Wally Wests, why they're so dramatically different in appearance, and it was a really neat little okay, here's what's going on, let's move forward. But I like the fact that this Wally's different. He's not just the Flash. Yeah. He's got his own. He's throwing lightning. He's got, different, mindset, different speed powers. I like this kid as how he is, and I want to see him in Titans. I want to see him further on. I want to see him put on the mantle of Kid Flash. I want to see that happen. I'm glad that we're getting this progression. I'm glad we're getting to see that. But tell me that scene where they're running up, that first time when they're running up the building, and they're saving the scaffolding, and they're doing the hand jive to make the whirlwind, to make the tornado kind of thing to catch them. That for me was some really cool story-wise moments, but also visual moments. I really, really love this art team and how they do the flash effects, how they do the speed, how they do the different stuff. There's some cool, again, some great looking stories being told here. It's, with the Flash, you got to have a cool story. You got to have that Barry that is Barry. You got to have that belief that, hey, yeah, that's Barry Allen. That's the Flash. Well, guess what? We're getting that visual stuff where you're seeing some cool stuff. And again, non-traditional panels, beautiful artwork. I love the coloring. This is another one of those where when you're dealing with the greens and when you're dealing with the flashes, you need to have that bright pop of color. You need to have that high energy pop that just, catches your eye. And we're getting that in these stories. So I'm very, very Flash happy right now.
I like that Mina reaches out to him first and is basically not, when he doesn't want to go with her to Star Labs, she doesn't leave it at that. She's like, well, okay, let's try a different way. We can kind of train together right now. Let's see what we can do kind of on our own. Let's do something a little different. She doesn't want to leave him hanging because she's, by her nature, a good person who sees the need to train him to help him along the way. What do you think about, because we see this in Supergirl, and we'll talk about Supergirl in our next episode, just because an issue came out last week, so I'd kind of like to talk current about that, and I haven't read it yet. But Supergirl has this book has it, and Green Arrow has it, where they're starting to bring elements in from the TV shows without going overboard with it, in my mind. I like it. I like that there's some echoes of what's working in the TV shows. Like this Wally West, clearly reminiscent of the TV show by the fact that he's into cars, and understands the mechanics of them and things like that. I really don't have a problem with them bringing this in. What do you think about that, though? When you see that stuff that, clearly is reminiscent of TV Diggle being in Green Arrow, those type of things, these are things that they're not beholden to the TV series, but clearly influenced by them. It is a rich part of DC's history. Batman did this in the 60s, where it was very reminiscent of the 66 television show at the time, and it did it. I prefer it this way, where it's not changing the entire tone of the book. It's just adding elements in. What are your thoughts, though? Do you like when they do this kind of thing? Do you prefer they don't? What do you like the comics totally separate? What do you like?
See, it depends. With me, the big thing is, when I'm getting my comic story, am I getting a good comic story? If I'm getting a good comic story, I don't mind if they've taken from the TV show and pulled in. Like with this stuff with this Wally, I absolutely love this stuff because one, they've already explained that this Wally West is a completely different person than the other Wally West. So this guy's going to be a little bit different. He's going to have his own thing. And I have no problem whatsoever with the cars and everything and the technical side of him and what they're pulling into that because I'm like, you know what? This fits this kid. This works for him. I like this. He's not the same kid that he was in the comic, in the TV show. He's got his own spin. He's got his own direction. Same thing when you talk about when they pulled Diggle into it. I didn't have an issue with it because the character Diggle in the comic book was a cool guy. Same thing when they pulled Felicity, and I liked the Felicity they pulled in because she was kind of groovy. So if I'm getting a good story in my book, I'm okay with the fact that there is some type of inspiration and or connection to the TV universe. They're not saying it's the same thing, but they're saying, you know what? If that TV universe is an Elseworld, that's one of the other Earths. Guess what? There's going to be a Felicity Smoke in this world. There's going to be a Diggle in this world. There's going to be this version of Wally West in this world because guess what? He is part of this universe. So in the TV show, he's handled this way. In the comic book, he's handled this way. So it's the multiverse, and we can have these type of variations. And I'm cool with it. I'm groovy with it. Now, if they had taken and had a line where they had the character being one way and then dramatically changed it for the TV show, then, because the TV show came on, that's where I would be going, okay, what are you doing here? We already had this history with this kid. We already had this line, but now with this is a new character. So let's go with this.
Yeah, I like that too. And I like your use of the multiverse there. And I like that they're embracing that. To me, the multiverse has always been one of DC's greatest toolkits, and I think that there's a point to doing that and allowing these things to exist. Sometimes there's interaction between different universes. Sometimes there's not. I like that your idea that the TV shows live in their own world, and I like that. I'm very into it. It's kind of like what they did with Batman Beyond originally. They were saying that was its own universe, and the animated universe is kind of its own thing too. And yeah, that's cool. I look at the film universe then as its own thing as well. Smart. It's really a smart way to kind of sum everything up and tie it together, which is really cool.
Now one thing that popped in my head, with this Godspeed, was his new partner is Godspeed. Part of me was thinking that. Now, it's one of those weird things where it's very tough to pinpoint, a time when they're both in the same room or anything like that. But even then, when you have that, when you're dealing with speedsters, they can manipulate stuff. One of the things that kind of caught my eye in this issue, because when they first introduced the guy, I figured, okay, he's going to be a villain. Just because of the nature of how comic books work, a lot of times when you have this person who you think is going to be a new hero, they turned out to be a villain. So I was immediately thinking this guy could be a villain. But when you start looking at how the guy is kind of making Barry look bad at work, where he's using his super speed to keep up on the casework. He wants to take it to another level, but also a couple of times when you see the power energy generating off of him, when he's in his form, you look at the God spell, and it's kind of similar looking. But again, it is the Flash universe. It says it is the energy, it is the lighting, so there's going to be appearances and similarities. But it's it's one of those things where I don't know. Part of me doesn't want this guy to be it, but part of me in the back of my mind is thinking, okay, he's the villain.
Wow. You know what? Here's the thing. In the issue where he was attacked, which was issue 3,
yeah,
you never see him on screen with Godspeed.
Yeah.
And everybody else died. Oof.
I know. So I was like, oh man, because part of me doesn't want it because I like the guy and I want Barry to have a partner, but in the back of my head, man, that was the first, when they first introduced him, and it was this issue that I really, really started thinking, and I went back and I reread, and I'm like, I didn't see a time when we had Godspell and Godspeed. I keep seeing Godspell, a Godspeed and him in the same room and one-on-one up against each other. And even when you think about when they attack when he attacks the Star Labs, the Barry's partner's running with Barry, but again, it's the whole speedster stuff, and I don't know. It's on one hand, you use that as the moment scene. That's the argument because he was with Barry when Godspeed was attacking, the other speedsters. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, because could it be just a speedster trick?
Well, and here's the thing: she ran to the Flash. When did the partner arrive on the scene? Because you can actually see, if you take a look at the sequence visually, you see his speed energy behind him, and you actually see almost an image of him showing up on the scene. Oof.
Oh, yeah. Actually, yeah, he may have just arrived.
So, I don't know. Well, is that a deliberate clue? Is it not? I don't know. It's because you don't see that with the Flash, that imaging. You see it with him, behind him. I don't know. It adds some. Here's the thing: it's a great mystery.
Yeah.
If it's him, cool. If it's not, cool. Because I'm with you on everything you were saying about really enjoying him as a partner. I like the distinct differences we see between the two of them. I like because they're on the police force together that he talks about. Barry's need to balance out that job with doing the Flash and all that kind of stuff. Really great opportunity to explore that type of relationship with these characters. I'm kind of indifferent as far as which way it goes because it's an interesting story.
I know, and the fact that he hasn't picked a name yet. Well, right. Maybe he has picked a name and he's just not telling anybody. His name is Godspeed, and it's just all these little stuff is just triggering in my head with this guy, and I'm like, man, I want to be wrong. I so want to be wrong on this guy, but I think he's the bad guy.
And yet, I don't know if we're in the same place on this one. I think we kind of are. Like, I want you to be wrong, and yet there's a part of me that wants you to be right.
I know, yeah.
I really like it.
Yeah, especially because he's really hanging out with Barry. He's learning Barry. He's studying the Flash from the Flash on the Flash side. He's working with him. He's learning Barry's strengths and weaknesses. And it's as he's building up his speed by taking it from these other speedsters. Again, I'm going to throw out a Highlander reference. There can be only one. And that's going to be the fight. I want to see Godspeed versus the Flash. I want to see that throwdown because this is different than with Zoom or Reverse Flash. This is someone who's he's stealing the speed, and it's like in a way out. I don't want to say he's endorsed by the Speed Force. But it's kind of like I'm wondering if that's one of the things the Speed Force did with throwing out all these speedsters out there to see, okay, who is the fastest, who deserves to have the Speed Force, who deserves to have this access. You got to earn that right.
Here's the funny thing: with Mina having been taken, it almost adds a validity to what you're saying. He took Mina for the purpose of using her against Barry.
Yeah. Because maybe he didn't absorb her energy, because if he absorbed her energy, there would be a husk, the body husk would be there like the other speedsters that we've seen. There's just her costume there. So he snatched her out of the costume and left the costume there to taunt Barry.
Yeah, you're right. Oof.
Yeah, no, and now it is funny because then I'm also thinking, what's Wally going to do? Because Wally's going to show up to meet up with Mina for training, and she's not going to be there. Is he going to then start looking into it, or is he going to, where is this going to go? And also, is Godspeed then going to attack Iris West? Because if Godspeed attacks Iris West, then I'm 100% locked on this guy because he knows that Iris and Barry are friends. And he's like, we're just good friends. So he knows that connection. He knows that relationship. And so I'm wondering if, that's going to be Godspeed's next attack. And then if that's the case, is Wally going to be there for the save? Is it going to be Barry? There's so many different stories that are running through my mind right now. My mind is literally racing with possibilities. I think, again, when you get a story that gets that high energy and gets you going that way, that is awesome. And again, with this one, it was really all with that final big swerve, that big moment, that final bam kind of realization that I had, thinking he was the main bad guy. So again, a wonderful swerve that gets me wanting more and more and more.
Can we talk Nightwing?
Oh, God, yeah.
So, Jim, Nightwing is a book I really wanted to talk about, obviously because it has the team up we all wanted to see, right? Nightwing and Batgirl together. This is a book that, here's the thing, this is another character who I firmly believe in the New 52 has done nothing but thrive, Dick Grayson. Whether he's been Nightwing or he's been Dick Grayson, Super Spy, it all has just worked in the New 52, and I've really enjoyed the storytelling with the character. I love him back in the Nightwing outfit. I love that he's infiltrated the court. I like that he's not working alone. I like the relationship with Barbara going on here, because Dick Grayson is human, and he has his faults. And I love what's going on with Raptor, and the fact that Raptor's kind of like this double agent, Nightwing's a double agent, and it's really good stuff. Batgirl has really benefited from Rebirth. She's a character who I like the idea that now they had kind of de-aged her in the previous series in where it had gone, and now they're getting her back up to being Batgirl as we know her, right? Because Batgirl to me is real competent, and there's something important to having her be this character, but yet she's got a moral code that I think is a little bit more strict than Nightwing even. And I like that about her, where she is kind of the more mature kind way that she looks at things. That comes from her intelligence. And I've always thought of her as a very intelligent character. When I was growing up, she was the librarian, right? In modern days, they made her Oracle, and having the tech skills and all that kind of stuff, which I really dig as well. And that goes back to the research-based skills of a librarian, right? So those skills are still in play. I've really loved that about the character. That costume has really grown on me. And I think it's because of the maturing of the character that I find that the costume's very cool as well. I've actually got the large statue of this Batgirl with the Batgirl costume because I just think it's really cool.
Oh, neat. Yeah, it's one of the things with her costume, because I'll go with that real quick. I like the fact that as time has gone on, they've modified it, they've adjusted it. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like Barbara is saying, okay, that didn't work, let me tweak this. Okay, let me modify that. And that was something for me. That's one of the reasons I agree with you. I really dig the costume because we saw those little tweaks. We saw those little variations that were being done to kind of fit the situation. And, again, it's you talk about just Barbara and the intelligence, and just, that's one of her great strengths, but also that moral character and that moral fiber. And with Dick Grayson doing a lot of the spy stuff, a lot of the double agent type of dealings, and just he's dancing that line. And I love the fact that, this whole storyline, that we've had with Nightwing is everybody is playing each other. The Court of Owls thinks they have control of Grayson. Grayson thinks he's playing them. And then later you see the court really kind of knew that Grayson was playing him, but now they think they got him. Because of everything that happened, and I love the fact that each of them is kind of vying for position. And It's one of those things that when it was Dick Grayson, Super Spy, that we really loved the fact that it had that kind of craziness, that mystery of who can you really trust. And I'm glad that is kind of continuing. Tim Seeley had, some big shoes to fill with, after continuing on writing Nightwing after Tom King did it, because I absolutely loved how he wrote the spy version of Nightwing.
Hold on. Chip, I got to stop you there for a second. It wasn't just Tom King. It was Tom King and Tim Seeley.
Right.
They wrote it together.
Yeah, I know. But going forward, he's got big shoes to follow up with. I'm not saying, talent-wise, but it's kind of like the following act. How do you follow? You had this great thing, how do you continue that energy going is kind of where I'm going with. Not him per se by himself having to do it. He's got to follow up what you have to. It's like the second album. This is the follow-up album is where this is where my mindset is. It's the follow-up album. You have this great band produces this really kick-butt song. You're like, yeah, this is awesome. And then their follow-up album, can they keep it going? This is his follow-up album. And I'm really glad we're still getting that same energy. We're still getting that same really cool story being told. Because that first initial album that we had out of them, that first Dick Grayson Super Spy story was absolutely wonderful. Nightwing has not lost a step, has not lost any of that. So it's, so I'm very, very excited to see that this is continuing.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. We kind of do the same thing with Scott Snyder, right? I've become a big fan, obviously, as so many people have, of Scott Snyder's writing. he's written so many big stories that have had, like, that become classics and have real impact. Case in point, Court of Owls, it influences this. You're right. The Grayson run was really, really great. So how do you follow that up? And it's going to be, I really am loving the fact that Tom King and Tim Seeley have kind of gone and done their own things. And we, you know, it's a chance for them to both stretch their creative legs and for us as fans to benefit from the work that they're doing. They're really doing a great job. Nightwing is phenomenal. Batman's phenomenal. These are two guys who really have done a great job at upping their game, I would say. Because I don't want to say I like this better than Grayson, but it's certainly because Grayson was its own unique thing. But I feel that the quality of this is every bit as good. And that's really important because I love him as Nightwing. I you know, it's funny, as much as I love Dick Grayson's Super Spy and would let that continue forever, when you see him back in this costume and see him with Barbara and see these moments with the Raptor, I'm like, man, that is awesome. Very classic Nightwing stuff.
Now speaking of Raptor, and here's something interesting that popped in my head. Again, it was one of those things that, you know, and it was, I don't even remember when, it was like one of the fight sequences between Raptor and Nightwing. It reminded me of when Nightwing fought Midnighter. You know, and it's that same type of style where he was anticipating Grayson's fighting before it happened. Now, granted, it could be just Raptor is a very talented fighter, but how neat would it be if that underneath that mask, it's actually Midnighter messing with Grayson or doing his own thing to go after the Court of Owls? Because we see in this that Raptor kind of has, he's willing to kill, but he does have the code, and he does have, you know, he's not just, you know, a lapdog, you know, a mercenary. There is something more to him, and it's kind of, for me, it really did fit, you know, a Midnighter-esque vibe to him, because I want this guy Raptor to be somebody, not just somebody new they're introducing, because somebody new can go away. I want this to be somebody who has longevity, because I really digged these two partnership and how they played off of each other.
I love the dialogue between Barbara and Dick during those sequences where, you know, the initial reaction is, I'm so glad you're alive, right? Because I thought the worst. And you would in this world, right? Because he's died once. And he, quote unquote, died once. Well, actually, he really did. Lex Luthor brought it back. But her, you know, reaction is, now, wait a minute. This means you stood me up for this guy? What's the matter with you? I loved that. I love the way it all played out because, you know, your initial relief turns quickly to anger when you realize the actual situation, and really, really well written. Dick Grayson talking about what he's trying to do with the Owls, you know, saying, at least I'm not alone. I don't know how comforted you'd be. Raptor is an outlier, right? He's not a part of the Bat family. You don't know what his real motivations are. Is he somebody that Dick Grayson can trust? You don't know. And that's one of the things that I think is really great and engaging about the story. I think he's a cool character. And I'm glad that they've introduced him into this. I'm going to be curious to see where this character goes. I like your analogy of connecting him with Midnighter, because he's not your traditional good guy, but he's not necessarily completely evil either. He does have some form of code to him. It's going to be interesting to see as this goes on how we feel about his quote-unquote code.
Yeah, and who he is and what he actually... He's got his own story. He's got his own agenda here. What is that actual agenda? Is it helping the world? Is it stopping the Court? Is it helping himself? Is it, you know... It's one of those kind of really cool mysteries where he's got... You see, he's not pure evil. He's not Lex Luthor. He is, you know... maybe a good guy, but maybe not. And I like the fact that we have this great mystery with him. And one of the things that I loved in this issue was when they're going through that crazy house of all the traps and how they really covered what could have been multiple issues of them just going through this house. They really did those really cool multiple panels, a lot of inner dialogue going on, and just that overlaying on one on top of each other, non-traditional, kind of laying them out like a little puzzle type pieces. I thought, again, this was a really cool art usage of artwork to further the story being told.
I like the traps.
Yeah.
When they're going through the building, you know, that whole sequence. And I liked seeing, you know, Nightwing, Raptor, the whole, Batgirl, the whole team together, taking advantage of the fact that they have three very different skill sets. I liked the adventure aspect of it, because you got the great interpersonal moments that you wanted from this, to the balance of this mystery and traps and kind of seeing them go through it. It added a different sort of feel to this whole thing, them going through mazes. I love adventure. high adventure. I love Indiana Jones, those kind of things, traveling through tombs. And it had that kind of vibe going on in it, too, which really worked well for me. Like, I wanted to go through this. Like, you shouldn't go forward because of the death traps that are in this place, but yet you want to explore, right? Just one more room. And that part was, I really had that vibe with this, the just one more room vibe. And that part was a lot of fun.
A lot of the Indiana Jones theme going through my head, to be honest with you, as I'm reading this, because it had that kind of adventure, feel to it. And I think that's kind of neat when you can get that kind of, that energy from a book. Just because it's easy to see that and have that going on in a movie, but on paper, getting that kind of groove going, and it's, again, you're dealing with Barbara, who's super intelligent. You're dealing with Dick Grayson, who is no slouch, and Raptor's got his own little skill set. I liked how this was, again, it showed the physical prowess, but it also definitely showed the intelligence that they had.
Barbara being the voice of reason was really cool, where, as this thing's going on, listen, I understand you trust him, but you need to understand this guy has similarities to you, but he's not you. And that's really important to hear from somebody who knows you. It reminds me, remember the Rocky when he was Tommy Gunn? Rocky kept trying to make him and mold him into him. Adrian kept saying to him, he's not you. And he doesn't have your drive and your motivation, your moral code, and all those type of things. And, Rocky was clearly trying to relive his legacy again through this guy. And this was interesting how Barbara's kind of having the same sort of conversation with him. That was really cool. And then we get brought up to speed with that whole murder sequence. I like that the owls are watching him.
Yeah.
As that death is seen there, the owls are like, we've got him now. He's been broken down now. And Raptor knew it. I like how Raptor was using that sequence of events to make that happen. That was really, really cool.
Well, that was really what they hired Raptor for.
Right.
Was the breakdown of Nightwing. It wasn't just to make sure to destroy that blueprint. It was they wanted this whole thing, because once they saw Nightwing go down, I love the fact that, yes, he did it right in front of How Delicious. Batgirl was there to witness Nightwing's fall. He is ours now completely. And I love the fact that it's the fact that Barbara was there, and I know that special connection. And I love this in that sequence when Grayson is just attacking him. In the background, you see Barbara over the dead body. You see how it really destroyed her. That fact that he killed. The fact that. Raptor killed this guy, and it was just, and Grayson let it happen. It was just, this was a great moment. And then once again, a nice little swerve, like, oh no, he's not dead. Yeah, okay.
When the whole sequence of events ends, I really like how Barbara has that confrontation with him, and basically says, listen, our side. What do you mean our side? This is your side. You didn't meet me in Japan because you knew exactly what I'd say. Pretending to be dead, infiltrating Spiral, now selling your soul to destroy the Parliament of Owls. I think you like this. I think you keep trying to swing out too far so you don't have to swing back. It's an interesting sort of debate with Dick Grayson. And I loved the metaphor of the cracked Barbara. As he was heading back in there, he bought her gift. Just kind of really taking in her words. And you don't get to see his internal dialogue to all that. Sometimes there's a point to leaving the readers with the assumption of what he's thinking. And I really liked that sequence of events. Dr. Leviticus being the kind of cliffhanger to the whole thing. They gave you a lot in this. He and Raptor flying off in that really cool vehicle was something that I just thought was a really fun adventure story. This has the right balance of everything you need in a Nightwing story, right?
Yeah.
You need adventure. You need relationships. You need Dick being human. And I really like that Dick Grayson isn't always perfect, but yet he's still one of the coolest guys around. And that really worked well in this particular story for me. And the character of Raptor is really interesting. I like that they chose somebody new, because the character is somebody that I want to see more of.
Yeah, and that's why I'm like, part of me wants him to be Midnighter, but I know he's not. Just because there's no way Midnighter could really fool Grayson. Plus, he has his own story going on. But he's got that same vibe to him, and I really, really liked the Grayson Midnighter team ups that we saw in the past. I think it's one of those kind of I don't know. It's a good pairing. It's the right power sets, and the right personalities. And part of me wonders if we're going to have that same type of guy. But again, I'm kind of on Barbara's side in that he's not one of them. He isn't a member of the Bat family, and you got to watch what you're doing. You got to where you're going. Watch, how much trust he's putting in this guy.
I agree with you. That's something that you really got to watch for this particular story, is how much trust he's putting in too. And that part's really interesting for me. This book has been a home run. To your point about living up to a standard, I think Dick Grayson really has enjoyed the right kind of writers in the New 52 writing this character. And in order to keep that going, that's pretty important.
I think it's what we're getting writers who like the character, who respect the character. It's not just the job to them, and you can kind of see the passion that they, previous versions put in, and now in current stuff, and they're continuing that same energy because we've got some really true emotional moments. And I think that for me is always a great sign of something to come when you start getting these just that, within the middle of this action sequences, within the middle of these mystery stories being unfolded, you're getting the tugging at the heartstrings. You're getting the human side of life. And that can a lot of times get lost in a comic book. Even a really good comic book you can kind of lose that humanity of it because of the craziness you're dealing with. It's, you're dealing with people who have powers like gods and guys who wear rings that can, create anything they think about. Or, this guy who was trained by a guy who dressed up like a bat, who was a family of a circus, he grew up in the circus and he's this world-class athlete and he's a super spy and all these different things stacked onto who Nightwing is. You could lose the person very easily. And I think that's something that all the creative teams has not lost Dick Grayson. They have not lost the person behind the mask. And I think that is something that I'm very happy to see is continuing in the Nightwing stories. We're not losing the guy.
Can we talk All-Star Batman?
Oh, yeah.
I really wanted to talk this All-Star Batman book, and one of the reasons why is it was funny. It was kind of poetic that you were talking about Tim Seeley kind of doing his next album, wanting to live up to the previous one. Scott Snyder's the same thing, right? How many albums this guy got in him? Man, this was cool, because what I loved about it is it took Two-Face and did a lot of what I think Scott Snyder's been doing really, really well. And that's getting to the core of what makes the character interesting, but also expanding that experience, right? He's done it with the Joker so well. Now with Two-Face, it's really this exploration of duality, the two sides of people, the dual coins. He's getting dirt on people for the purpose of having them take down Batman, right? And I really love this premise of the story. Talk about high adventure. You got Batman in sequences where he's not really seemed to be safe anywhere. Batman shows up and he rescues people in this Augie Max diner, right? And the people turn on him because of Two-Face. I loved that sequence because I didn't see it coming. I didn't read any of I don't know if there was a blurb about this story. I knew Two-Face was going to be the villain, but I didn't know anything else other than that. So, you see this miles traveled, and you get this idea of this sense of travel. I really love John Romita Jr.'s artwork in this. He's somebody who I really think as he's done more and more work with DC, I've always enjoyed his Marvel work. As he's done more and more work with DC, he's really kind of tried to figure out his own unique DC style. And I think it's really benefited us as readers to see it. I really thought this was a very pretty book. I know his artwork in particular was artwork that you had to get used to during his Superman run. I don't know how you feel about it in this book. I was really curious to talk to you about the artwork in particular because I thought it was a highlight of this title. Where are you at on it?
Oh, I'm big time in. I'm all in on this one. Visually and story-wise and just everything that is, again, swerve on swerve on swerve on. And it's just been a really cool, it's been a fun roller coaster ride. And it's funny because this book has a different feel to it than what we're getting in Detective and what we're getting in Batman titles.
Yes.
And I'm so glad that it's, but I say a different feel. It's not though, but it's still the same Batman. It's still the same universe. It's still the same guy. It's still that same great Batman stories that we're getting. I think that for me is, again, it's difficult to, have a character who is he's got you got in your mind, especially in me, I've got in my mind who Batman is. So with if you're going to have any stories that deviate from that, that's going to throw me off. Well, the way the story's being told, there's nothing throwing me off on this. It fits in there. It's different. It's groovy. It's got a different jive to it. And I think it needs to have this art style to it because for me, this has a much different feel and, I'm trying to figure out a good way to describe it. It's the run and gun type of feel that Batman's dealing with. And I think this art style really fits that just bam, 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 one after another action sequences going on. It's not just a complete, there's still the intelligence. There still is the Batman moments. There's still those badass moments where he's just kicking butt like nobody else could. But then you do have that chaos that is affecting him. And I think that for me has been something that I was like, man, this is awesome. And I think part of the energy that I'm getting is from the visual stylings of this. And I think if I didn't have the time to get used to the Romito artwork before, it would be throwing me off. But I've already had I had the Superman stuff where I could get adjusted to his style. I could get adjusted to his groove. So I'm adjusted to it. And now I'm like, man, this is the right way to go with this book.
Did you call him Romito?
I may have.
John Romita and his father, John Romita, and John Romita Jr. are very famous artists, particularly for Marvel. No, I'm not even saying it that way. I'm really not saying it about you. It's very interesting to see him here at DC doing really cool work at DC. And I really think that this book has benefited from his opportunity to do what he did over with the Superman book. Because I really do feel, and I don't know if you agree with me on this, I feel like his artwork has evolved a bit from Superman. I really am enjoying his style on this. I loved his artwork on Superman, don't get me wrong. I was a big fan of that from the get-go. But I feel this is something different. Like, I feel it's a step beyond. I feel there's a care. Not that there wasn't before, but I feel like, he's kind of just upped his game. And it's interesting to say that about an artist who is so acclaimed, and rightfully so. But I really feel like there's been an upping of the game here. I don't know if you're experiencing that, though. Are you?
Well, actually, it's funny you mention that, because for me, when I was going through this, I was reading, I had that same groove, same feel like, wow, it's Romita art, and I was like, it's the same stuff. I was like really digging that. So I went back and I started looking, and I think it's the colorist, to be honest with you, because he's got the same inker, but that colorist, Dean White, and I think the way, because you always have more of a darker twinge and a little dirt to Batman, and they still have that dirt, but they still have the color. I'm trying to figure. I don't know the correct terminology on how this art on to describe it, but in my head, when I see this and I look at this, there is a little bit of a dirt to it, and you need to have that little bit of dirt in the Bat universe. You got to have that, even when Bruce isn't in Gotham. There's still that little bit of darkness to him, and I think that's something that we're getting in this, because there's a lot of it's not like with the fire with Fire Moth or
Firefly and
thank
Killer
you.
Moth.
Firefly and Killer Moth.
Right.
Sorry. You look at them because, Firefly, it's bright red, right? No, there's some dirt, there's some ash, there's some singe to them. Same thing with Killer Moth. It's he's got the green hues, which a lot of times green can really pop. Well, they kind of graded up a little bit. They dinged it up a little bit. I think for me, that is something that has kind of changed the artwork a little bit.
Yeah, and I would agree with you on that. I think that's the piece. You're right, it's a good art team. I mean, the art team really just gels well together. I think they understand the tone of the story trying to be told here. The visuals are really pleasing to me, though. I love the detail. I think, there's something to be said for having a great artist with a great inker and a great colorist to understand what they're trying to do as a team. I didn't see that until, the colorist part, until you said that. And I think you're right. I think it really is the whole team just gelling together and really understanding each other, because the colors pop in this in all the right ways.
What are you thinking about Duke?
Oh, I love Duke.
I know.
I love the costume. I love him with Jim Gordon, where Jim's like, so can I call you Robin? I'm trying something new, Jim. Something better, I hope. And I like how he's just blunt with him, saying, this is an experiment. But I really loved the the fist pop between Duke and Batman in that moment, that was really cool to see. I like the relationship between these two, and I like that they didn't just go with calling him Robin. I like that they're trying to do something new. I don't know how it's gonna play out, but ooh, I like it.
Yeah, and I like the fact that he is not a Robin but a partner. And it is something. Yeah, and as you said, I really dig in the fact that they did that with Duke, because when I remember, in the back, when everything was playing out, like, who's going to be the Robin? Is it going to be Damian? Is it going to be Duke? And we kept throwing out, like, we just wanted Duke around. We didn't know what they were going to do with him, but we didn't want him to go away. And I was so glad that they kept him in, they kept him in check. They kept him in play. And he is going to be something. I don't know where exactly he's going to play out in the end and how he's going to play, how he's going to be, but I'm glad that they didn't throw him out. I'm glad that, they're giving this guy life. And it's because he was one of the really big standouts from that We Are Robin movement. And it fits that he would be the one to continue on the mantle, but he's not continuing on the mantle as Robin. He is himself. He's his own entity.
I like that the 2 weeks ago thing comes up in play, and Jim's like, is this your idea or is it his? And really this kind of the nature of the whole thing where Bruce is looking back and it's Harvey Dent, saying, hey, I'm losing myself. He's coming back. He's got terrible plans. I don't know what they are. Two people in one body, two different minds. I like the exploration of duality, not just from him, but him preying on the duality of others. Everyone's got a weak spot. Everyone's got secrets. How can I utilize those? That part is really interesting on the dual nature of Two-Face, who would understand that more and how to manipulate it more than anybody else. Really made for a rich psychological story with all this. I love that he's almost hiding in the cape. He's in the cape, and you kind of see that that's something that's internal in Batman right now, because this was his friend. And that's an interesting part of this whole thing. Your friend goes bad, and there's a party that still wants to redeem him. And when he comes out and you believe that it's him, saying, I want to burn this guy out, and you know what house we need to go to and what house I'm talking about. I like that sense of mystery with Batman. I grew up with the 70s Batman, who was globetrotting, and would kind of do this kind of thing. I like that this is kind of a hybrid of that in the modern Batman. It works really well. We had the dark, brooding Batman for the longest time, right, where that's all he was. And I liked that. I liked that Batman, don't get me wrong. But there comes a point where it's like, okay, now where are we evolving him to now, and how do we keep him at the core who he is? This is a great way to do it. I think a lot of this can be attributed to the success of Pete Tomasi's Batman and Robin book, and how we got to see Batman kind of multifaceted and got to see more of this side of him. I'm glad that it's playing into this, because I don't think it's diminished Batman. If anything, I think it's made him more powerful, the fact that he's a little bit more balanced. And I like that about him.
One of the things that I'm wondering, now this end sequence with Alfred, and what did he have to do?
So it's an offer he's made to everyone, right?
Right.
So it's an offer you can't refuse. It's an offer he's made to everyone. What is the offer? I don't know. Everyone in Gotham, in the whole state, I made an offer. I told them that right now, you and me, we're flying north from Gotham City. And if we get where we're going, everything I've got on everyone, I mean everyone, it all comes out. Every skeleton, every visit to a bad place, real on the good old interweb, the dark net, everything will be brought to light. But if someone down there stops us, if someone takes you down and sets me free, I'll take the fortunes of the 3 biggest crime lords in Gotham and give them to that person in an untraceable secret payment. I'm saying, embrace your inner villain, folks. Set me free, take down the bat, and everything you've ever dreamed of will be yours. So, take a look down there, Batman, and tell me what you see. Because me, I see a gambling table. You're trying to end me, I'm trying to end you. One last hand. What a great dialogue sequence. Like that I want to see on a screen. I want to see that delivered on a screen. And, ooh, I mean, just, this is a great book.
Oh, God, yeah. But I'm talking the Alfred moment.
Oh, no, but the Alfred moment was precipitated by that, Jim.
Right.
Because remember, Alfred's looking at the screen during that. Because Alfred's the one that says, to everyone. It's an offer he's made to everyone, which means it includes Alfred. So in order for that sequence to be in play, Jim, you have to look at that, because that was the lead kickoff to everything you're talking about. So I'm not taking away from what you're saying. You obviously want to go to that, so let's go to that. But you can't go there without that, because that's the prelude to the drama piece that you're talking about that so comes out cool.
Is Alfred double-crossing Bruce?
I don't know.
because that's the thing. He's sitting there. He's got the crying. He's got the tear in his eye. I just want to say, I'm so sorry. I had to do it. What did he do? Because is he double crossing Bruce? I'm like, I can't believe that. I can't believe that is what he's doing. I'm like, that for me was one of those big swerve at the end moments going, wait a minute. Alfred's and it was one of those kind of like I was stunned because I agree with you completely. The power and just the magnitude of what actually Harvey Dent is doing is absolutely wonderful. It is absolutely just an absolute brilliant plan. To the point where I'm not even going to say it's strategery. I have so much respect for that plan because it is that really, really good plan. But it is one of those things where at the end there, then you're like, and I got stymied. Because I was trying to figure, and this was one of those things where the brain kind of froze up on me going, is Alfred double crossing Bruce? And I can't believe he would ever do that. So he had to have done something else. And I don't know what something else is.
He did. They crash. Something is heading towards you. That's impossible. We're ghosted too. Sir, someone must know the codes. Someone who wants him free. Closing in, sir. Brace for impact, sir. If he did anything, it was there.
Oh, man, I wonder.
Because if you take a look at him back at the sequence of events, look what he's looking at. He's looking at the crashed Batwing.
Yeah.
So, who knows?
Holy crud, yeah.
If he did that.
And on the screen, it says target destroyed.
Right.
He shot down the Batwing.
Real
Alfred
interesting.
shot down the Batwing. Oh, my God.
It'll be interesting to see where this goes. Here's the great thing on the end, and we haven't really talked about this. On the back of the truck that he and Two-Face are driving from, Gentleman Ghost. What a random, I'm like, wait, I don't think I've seen Gentleman Ghost in the New 52.
Yeah, I don't know if we have or not. And is he normally a Batman rogue and villain?
No, he's a JSA.
But is he a Gotham villain? Because with...
No, but they're traveling eastbound and down, I guess. Anything's fair game.
Now, does Bruce know that Alfred took out the Batwing?
I don't know.
Because he pulls his communication, and he even says, hey, does someone take out the wing? They have to be close. I'm going stealth on this one. So he pulls his communication.
Right.
So is that him saying, I know?
I don't know.
Man, I'm like, oh, I want to know more.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what's happening with that. So they have the backstory on this one, which is also done by Scott Snyder. Focuses a little bit more on seeing some more of Duke in action. I quite like that sequence, seeing what happened with Duke. And there being a backstory with Duke that's... I've always been a big fan in comics of the backstory, where there is a secondary story that's going on that further fleshes out the sequence. If there's something I want them to focus on, I want more of Duke and Batman teamed up. That whole sequence where, she's kind of on that, creepy little sequence where she's almost cutting herself. Is she doing that to herself? I forget this. Was she doing this to herself?
I don't know, man, because in a way, it looks to me like she's not cutting herself. Her body is just rupturing.
Yeah.
Because that's how I kind of read it. When you see her, just because if she wants them to kill her, and if she wanted her, if she was cutting herself, she would have. I'm assuming would take it to another level. So that's why I'm thinking her body is kind of rupturing, and it's just it's. I don't know. Either she's exploding inward, outward, or I don't know.
It's good stuff. I really love. Do you like backstories like that?
Yeah, actually, and again, it's as you said, it fleshed out a little bit more about him and Duke and the nature of that, the nature of who they are and whatnot. And I like the fact that they did bring up the fact that he's not a sidekick, but you got to watch what you're doing because you'll become a hero or even the villain. And that was kind of a neat thing because he's like, villain Jason? No, someone else. And again, that's someone else. Hey, who's that someone else? So again, little hints as to where the story is going to go as to who is that someone else that was either trained by the Bat or is known by the Bat, but not talking Jason.
Right. Yeah, I can't wait to see how this turns out. Really, really good stuff. Great kickoff.
Holy caffeine!
Jim, I want to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. I'm still getting my equipment set up here, so we didn't do voicemails on this episode, but we have a couple already ready to go for our next show. We are definitely doing voicemails on the next episode, so if you want to call in about something, feel free to call into 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. We love having you a part of the show. Sponsoring this episode once again is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Jim, what's going on at DCBService.com?
Bundles, 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 bundles. They're continuing their support. One of Vertigo with their really great Vertigo bundle, which I'm very happy with. We've added on the Young Animals bundle that they're going on. Both of those 50% off. But, of course, continuing with the Rebirth universe, there's 4 separate bundles. That way they're covering the full universe. Look to see which titles you want to go with. 50% off. Plus another bundle, the miniseries bundle. Again, 50% off, but that's not all there is. Of course, I'm talking He-Man, Thundercats, art by longtime friend Freddie Williams II, so you know it's going to be absolutely beautiful. 40% off, only $239. Pick up He-Man and Thundercats. How can you go wrong with that combo? I am very pumped for that.
Over at InStockTrades.com, I want to shout out some of the latest releases. One of them in particular, Green Arrow Trade Paperback Volume 6, Last Action Hero. This is 45% off, only $10.99. This is the Mike Grell work, and I can't recommend that stuff more highly. Mike Grell's stuff is clearly influencing the Arrow TV show right now, along with so many other great stories for Green Arrow, but this is really terrific work where they modernized Green Arrow, they brought some maturity back to the character, and just made him really interesting. I'm a big fan of this run in particular. Harley Quinn Trade Paperback Volume 4, A Call to Arms, 45% off, only $9.34. We've got Suicide Squad Most Wanted Katana miniseries. Trade Paperback 45% off, only $9.34. Wonder Woman Trade Paperback Volume 8, Twist of Fate, 45% off, only $9.34. So whether you're grabbing their deals of the week or latest releases, if books that maybe you've missed and you want to get caught up on, InStockTrades.com is your place to go to get these deals at 45 to 50% off. They sometimes have deals up to 70% off. They have upgrades and shipping and special deals relating to that. InStockTrades.com really is your collected edition source, and it's a great way to get caught up at a discount price, because this hobby can get very expensive, and it's great to be able to have discount sources to be able to have the collection that you're looking for. So I want to thank InStockTrades.com and DCBService.com for continuing to support the show. I want to shout out RagingBullets.com as our show website. That's where you'll see when new episodes are being released. It feeds to Twitter. It feeds to our Facebook fan page. We also have a Facebook group community that we share with Infinite Comics, and really, when I say that we share it with Infinite Comics, we share it with so many other podcasts and blogs, because so many of the people post there are from all over the place. It's a great community page. I consider it really everybody's who posts there regularly. I'm a visitor there. And I love that it's grown so far beyond that. It's really their page and that community, but they're a community that I'm proud to be a part of people who just love this stuff. And I want to thank everyone who posts there regularly for creating such a wonderful community, because it's really yours. And I'm, like I said, I'm proud that the show on some level is associated with it. Remember, if you don't normally join Facebook groups because you find them to be intrusive, they have so many great settings there for you to personalize your experience. You don't want emails, it won't give you emails. You want certain kinds of notifications, but not others. You want it in a digest. You can control that all from the settings. So when you join that, be sure to check out the settings options to make that customizable to your needs. So don't let that shy you away from joining that great community of people. We're also on Google+. You can find us basically on any social media. I'm on PlayStation Plus, so please, or the PlayStation Network, I should say. So please feel free to add me on there. I love communicating with everybody who enjoys our podcast. So thank you very much for that. Jim, our next episode, we're going to keep talking more comics. Just like your bundles. So one of the books we'll talk about for sure is Supergirl. So we will see everyone next episode.
Bye.
On November 13th, Sean Whalen was asked to stop constantly talking about comic books. That request came from his wife. Deep down, he knew she was right, but he also knew that someday he would find someone that would talk to him. With nowhere else to go, he appeared at the home of his childhood friend Jim Segulin. Sometime earlier, Segulin's boss had requested that he shut up about his comic books and never speak of them again. Can two grown men put out a DC Comics podcast without driving each other crazy? It's Raging Bullets, the DC Comics fan podcast. With Sean Whalen as Dr. Norge, and Jim Segulin as the Sensei of the Whatnot and the Duke of You Know. It's a spoiler podcast, so they will go in depth into the plot lines, story twists, and whatnot of the comics they are reviewing. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you may better enjoy the show.